Can you take me from the point just before Nuremberg, what you were doing then, let's say in the latter months of the war, and how you wound up at Nuremberg in the job that you had?
Okay, well, I was in the 1st Division, the 1st Infantry. I had just come back in February from 3 months in the hospital in England from shrapnel wound. We got back to the same place where I was wounded. The Battle of the Bulge had taken place meanwhile. And
Yep.
all the crew, there wasn't anybody left in the company that I knew. They all had been replaced.
Yep.
Then we went to the Harz Mountains. Then they switched us over to General Patton's 3rd Army.
Yep.
And we went across Magdeburg and ended up in Czechoslovakia.
Right.
Following that, Colonel John T. Corley was battalion commander.
Yep.
He'd had me ever since when I came back to the company. He put me in a special squad. I don't just remember what he called it. A bazooka team.
Yep.
And when we came back pulled back from Czechoslovakia to Ansbach, we were then shipped up to Nuremberg just to be in charge of the SS prisoners clearing rubble out of the streets.
Right.
And he gave me the assignment just to make sure that when Justice Jackson came that nothing happened to him.
Yeah.
That's the
Right. Now,
outline of it.
would you recall for me your first contact with Justice Jackson? Where it came about, when, all the detail that you can provide me.
I don't know that you remember where we lived at an apartment out in 1st Dambach,
Right.
which is northwest of Nuremberg. And he was equipped, he was given the usage of a Mercedes-Benz that belonged to von Ribbentrop.
Really?
Big 16-cylinder job.
Oh my God.
It was one of 5 cars. This one was not armored. Goebbels was armored, and
Yeah.
a couple of the others were armored, I guess. This wasn't. A lad from Massachusetts, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, was the driver, the regular driver.
Yeah.
His name escapes me right now. I remember it was a touring car.
Yeah.
Had a double row of 8 cylinders.
Yeah.
He got something like 3 miles a gallon.
And the top would come down, obviously. And
Oh yeah, the top folded down.
Yeah.
We had it up to 200 kilometers once on the way down to Munich and blew a tire.
That's 120 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there were tube tires at that time, and there wasn't a fragment of tube left bigger than a thumbnail.
Was the Justice in the car at the time?
No.
Yeah.
I was given first off just simply a 45
Right.
to be guard, and after they gave me a blackjack and I think it was a 365.
Yeah.
Little snub nose. I don't remember the exact thing. I think it may well have been at the Justice building that we were introduced. And it was a 24-hour job. I was supposed to know where he was all the time and
Right.
be a shadow for him. I was sort of at first they had guards stationed regularly at the gate,
Yeah.
but then I had the reception room at the front door, and I was always on call there whenever he was in the house. When he went to the court,
Yeah.
then I was in the court. I rode the shotgun place there for him.
He's assigned a home, I understand.
Yeah, the home was at Dambach, 1st Dambach.
It was. Did you have quarters there?
I did, yeah. I had the small servants' quarter right at the main door, right at the front door.
To the extent, I know, I apologize for asking these questions.
That's all right,
45 years after the fact,
Yeah.
but you seem to have a good memory. To the extent that you can, reconstruct that house for me. Let's say if I were to approach that house at that point, what do I see in terms of grounds when I enter it, the color of it, the construction?
Okay. As you came from the main street, I know we usually took different routes going there, but as you approached the place, we came to turn into the driveway and to the left,
Yeah.
and there were stone pillars on either side, and
Yeah.
I believe it was fence. What kind of a fence, I don't recall. I was presume high wrought iron.
Right.
There was I would guess maybe an acre site, or a little less than an acre maybe, at least as far as we were familiar with a part of it. The driveway was on the left side of the road, and he went up. It was a kind of a pale stucco house,
Yeah.
or a tan stucco house. I don't remember the entrance exactly. I think there were steps there,
Yeah.
and you walked right from the driveway right up the steps into a very small porch, and the room that I had was right off the porch, so you had access to see if the guards were out there or anybody else that approached. I don't know what was on the perimeter on the other side of the property, how that was cared for.
Yeah.
Then there was a little, to the straight on, there was, I don't believe, a garage. No, the garage was, you had to turn around the back of the house to the right, and I think there was a garage there. To the left, there was a kind of little sun porch.
Yeah.
Immediately on entering the room, going right past my room, there would be a kind of a reception room or living room, and the dining room straight on past that,
Yeah.
and the kitchen off to its left.
Yeah.
And it seems there were 2 cooks anyway, and an alternate driver, and it seemed to me they lived either off to the left or in the quarters below. There was a second floor, and the Chief Justice and his son Bill and his secretary Elsie Douglas all had separate rooms up there.
On the second floor.
Yeah.
This had been an ordinary house, an opulent house. How would you characterize it?
I think, high class.
Yeah.
Not super, but above middle class, I would say. Like 7 o'clock, and then the drivers and the cooks would eat, and they'd have something for them in the dining room.
Yeah.
And then maybe 8 o'clock or so. Again, I'm not even sure of this at all, but at an early office hour,
Yeah.
the driver and the 2 Jacksons and Elsie would get in the car. As far as I remember, almost always when they're going to town, the top was up.
Yeah.
And we get off somehow on the main road and just drive down. We were let off in the front of the Justice building, and just simply walked in his office, I believe, on the second floor.
Yeah. What do you recall about the Justice Jackson's office in the palace?
It was, I think, 2 rooms off a reception room.
Yeah.
Coming to the reception room, and it was off to the right. I'm not sure I've seen it. Either one large room, high ceilinged, or more than likely 2 rooms. It was big enough to be soundproof, so we didn't, out in the main in the reception room where I had to stay, I didn't know what you're talking about.
Right.
But he had a lot of, big shots, generals and judges and advocates and stuff come in.
You're just posted there to see that nothing irregular happens.
Right, or at least to be someone, if anything happened, to be ready to start some commotion or protect him.
Yeah.
And then whenever he went in or out, I'd have to tail him.
Yeah.
Didn't always have to go in the room, but I had to be with him whenever he went to the court, I was in the court.
Was he go out to lunch at some point?
No, they brought that in.
Oh, really?
More often than not, yeah.
Yeah.
There were cafeteria facilities there, but I don't remember ever going. No, maybe we did a few times. It seems to me most of the time they brought meals.
Does he put in a pretty long day?
Oh, yeah, and even in the evening hours a lot of times.
What would be a typical evening departure?
Well, we would leave there often, either in time for supper or to go to some kind of a program at night, but then he'd be working at the house. I mean, it wasn't a matter of, they didn't have television in those days, but
No.
It wasn't a matter of just going up there and lounging around. He'd have, as guests, other people who were involved in the trials. In a while, I remember being at the Grand Hotel
Yes.
a few times.
Yes.
We had a trip once to Berlin, another one to London, another to Paris and to Rome.
Where did the justice work when he was at home?
In his room upstairs.
Is he affable? Does he spend all his time working? Does he sleep? Does he what kind of a?
It would usually run different. My impression is a lot of conversation, somewhat about Roosevelt and things going on back home. More often than not, centered pretty much around the trial, personalities or developments or projections, and I found them very pleasant, affable, articulate. He would. I found him a responsible Christian person.
Yeah.
I found him a very learned man, well-read, certainly knew law very well.
Yes.
I found him admirable, that's all I can say.
Did he show a personal interest in you?
Yes.
How would that manifest?
Well, only at the occasion, like we had a Christmas party for all the staff there at one point.
Yeah.
And he would just, express his gratitude for looking out for him, or for the drivers, or for the cooks,
Yeah.
the two guys who were assigned there. And at the end, I'm not sure just when it was, but it must have been in the spring of '46. Who instigated, I don't know, but he gave me some kind of a military commendation.
Yes.
And autographed a few pictures, things that were going on there.
Would he inquire after your family, where you were from?
He would. And in fact, when I left the service, I stayed on at the court because it was simply a good working system, and he, I think, I'm not sure how, but it seems to me he encouraged me. He said it'd be nice if you stayed on. And he invited me and the driver, his main driver,
Yes.
to his home in McLean, Virginia when we got back.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We flew back via Newfoundland, and we flew back with him. He said, if we stay on, we'll take you back home. And he invited us, I don't know just where we stayed at the time, but I remember we were at his house in McLean.
Yeah.
And Elsie Douglas came to my ordination.
Oh, she did. What year was that, Father?
That was the 28th of May, 1955.
Well, that's
So
wonderful.
we had a nice relationship, It was
Yeah.
an easy facility for talking and accepting responsibilities for the roles that we were cast in. If you should want some other visual detail, I've got a great big album of which one was presented to several of those who are close, mostly Chuck Alexander pictures of the trial. Well, I'm not sure of his rank. I think he was a lieutenant in the Navy.
Yeah.
A kind of gopher for his dad.
Yeah.
A confidant.
Yeah.
He was a vice president in a kind of way, to make contacts with others, when just simply to multiply Jackson's presence.
I was very much moved by the opening statement that Justice Jackson gave on opening the trial. Very, very eloquent. And I understand from people I've talked with that he pretty much worked on it himself. Do you recall him poring over that opening statement?
Well, I wasn't in on all the kind of things that he did, but I know that he would be talking with Elsie Douglas and his son, but I'm persuaded that he wrote all the stuff himself.
Did you observe any of the court proceedings? Would you sit in the court?
I did, yeah. Whenever Jackson was there, I was there.
Do you recall any of the interplay between him and Goering?
I can picture a lot of it. I'm not sure that I can remember much of any kind of a contest that you're suggesting, but I know that, again, partly by being on the victorious team,
Yeah.
Jackson always came out ahead.
Yeah.
Once in a while, with a smirk on his face, Goering would, as much to say as gotcha, but
Yeah.
they were pretty well a beaten crowd.
Is he a man who occasionally let off steam?
I would say rarely and controlledly, if I can say that.
Sure.
I don't think he'd ever blow his top.
No.
he never lost control. There was monkey business going on. I remember especially the Katyn Forest incident.
Oh, yes.
Where the Germans brought up accusation against the Soviets, and the Soviets simply denied it. It's only in the last year that they would acknowledge it again.
Right.
But again, the limitations of the court charter or something like that seem to have been, they had to back off on that to say it was not in the competence of the court here. There's Jeffrey Lawrence, you got along real well with him.
Yeah.
I can't think. Telford Taylor.
Yeah. Does Justice Jackson have a sense of humor?
Oh, yeah. Casual but genuine.
Yes.
Yeah, he was, in charge of, in control of himself. He was self-possessed.
Yeah.
And, he could be, you would recognize all nuances of funny things.
Period in which you're guarding him, there were no incidents, there was never any problem?
Correct.
Well, congratulations.
Oh, yeah. I might not be here if there were. There's only so much you can do with a snub nose, I remember one incident at the Grand Hotel where one of the Soviet officers was killed.
My God, what happened?
And the only explanation we got was that he forgot his pistol was loaded when he was cleaning it.
I've heard that one.
Which is most unlike early months of 46.
Maybe January, February 46,
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
You would be on duty. What uniform did you wear?
For a while, when I first started, and I'm not sure for how long it was my regular Army uniform with a 1st Division patch.
And did you wear combat boots?
Yes, I'm quite sure it's all we had.
Did you wear an overseas cap or a helmet?
Overseas cap.
Did you plan to enter the priesthood?
I had no idea of it until maybe halfway through that year.
Is there any connection with your service there and that decision, or was it strictly a
Yeah, I'm sure there are, but I don't know restricted to that, because even when the war was going on, the shooting and all, I certainly got a different sense of values than simply going back and working at a drafting board or an engineering firm.
Now, what had you done before the war?
I just finished 2 semesters at Purdue.
Yeah, and at that point, had you any professional objective?
Mechanical engineering was what I was going into.
Yeah. So you go in the war, you see some pretty awful things from what you're telling me,
Yeah.
and Nuremberg has a bearing as well on your decision.
Yeah, part of it is pageantry, because I think it was the last trip we took together. The Jackson and his staff was down to Paris, and from there down to Nice, Nord de Rome, when Cardinal Spellman was elevated to the cardinalate under Pius XII. A little bit of history of Rome, seeing the ruins of ancient Rome there was part of it, and the whole pageantry of services there in St. Peter's. A lot of other factors, and I don't know, I've never really spent a lot of time thinking comparison, but one of them would be that within 4 or 5 days after the 5th of May, our battalion commander took a jeep load of us back from Czechoslovakia to Kunnersreuth, where Teresa Neumann lived.
Yes.
Teresa Stigmatic.
Right.
That was very impressive, talking with her and seeing her with her pastor, Father Neighbor.
Yes. What about sitting in that court hearing about all of the horror of the Nazi era? Did that have a bearing on your thinking?
Well, I know it did. The value of life and the value of principles in life, the value of Christianity, somehow, and of course, the material aspect of communism. We have to be boss because we're boss. That's what's right. He was bringing a group of 25 or 30 people to church with all these strange enemy soldiers around.
Yes.
A shepherd with a sheep kind of thing. And it seemed to me that said an awful lot about what the value of the church was.
Yeah.
Our family was always faithful in the church. We were always It was a good family upbringing. We prayed and went to Mass regular, but it had never been any more than that for me. But I decided, whatever days I had left, and I never expected to live as long as I am now, the way things were going. We came home to the States in early August, maybe the second week, for middle of, it wasn't, I know I got out of Fort Dix on the 15th, came home on the 15th of August, and that would have included a week before.
A number of people who suggested to me that there was a romantic angle to the Jackson and Douglas relationship. Was that evident to you, or do you have an opinion?
I would doubt that. I think it was just a happy business-like arrangement. I would not infer anything like that.
No, you didn't draw that conclusion.
And I got to see them all the time.
Where were you wounded? What locale?
In the Hurtgen Forest.
More about when?
19th of November in 46.
19th of November. And where physically were you wounded?
Physically, left leg. Shrapnel locked my two bones together.
I see.
And, I couldn't walk on it. I was 3 months in Blandford, in the hospital in England.
So you're selected as a bodyguard. Are you a big fella?
No, about 5'9", 155.
No, it sounds totally average in height and weight, I would say. Speak German, or do you speak German?
I do now. I picked it up a lot by osmosis at home.
Yes.
Swiss German, Swiss dialect. But then when I was 3 months in the hospital, I tried to save my skin, so I learned an awful lot of the Army manuals on German for interpretation, and that got me off the front line when I got back.
Good move.
Went back to battalion headquarters.
Well, you paid your dues. And then, so when you were at Nuremberg, you're able to get along. And
I can understand things,
Well, Father Fuchs, I am so grateful that you're giving me this time. I appreciate it very much. And you have been very helpful.
I'm glad it was of some help. And I'll find some way to get that book to you.
I'm delighted. I'll be very careful with it, and I hope that I could use some of it in the book.
Okay.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.